It wasn't pretty, but it was a win. The Dodgers win their fifth game in a row. Clayton Kershaw returned to the mound and brought a new pitch with them. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the Dodgers won and how they've been able to win some games that they maybe we had no business winning. And we'll look ahead to the postseason rotation now with Kershaw back. That's what's on tap. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become a part of the exclusive Everydayers Club by listening every day, and you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing and be notified when our episodes are up. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host Jeff Snider. We're both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team. We currently cover the team with this podcast, but we've covered the team for other outlets. We've been in the press box, we've been in the locker room, we've been in spring training. We've watched the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. We've watched the Dodgers at home. We watched the Dodgers at different ballparks. We've done a lot involving the Dodgers, and that's why we think we're here to bring you some decent to strong analysis about the Dodgers, depending on the day sometimes. But that's what we're here to do today, and we're talking about the Dodgers and their fifth straight win, Jeff.
Which one of us is decent and which one of us is strong?
It depends on the day, that's why.
Oh, okay. I feel like we should have talked about this before we started recording. I didn't know what's expected of me today. If people watch on YouTube will notice that I'm recording in a slightly darker room. My breaker tripped again in my recording studio / office. And so turned off the overhead lights, hoping that we can get through this episode without any power issues. But, we'll see if I stick around for the whole episode.
Yeah, the Dodgers had a little bit of power issues last night, but
segue.
Yeah, but either way, they got the job done. Max Muncy hit a towering shot, and then he ended up bringing in the other run. The bases loaded walk late in the game. We'll talk about kind of the offense and how they've been able to manufacture some runs and win some games. But the big story: Clayton Kershaw returned to the mound. He went 5 innings. He allowed just 1 run on a solo home run. Before the game, Dave Roberts had said he didn't really know what to expect out of Kershaw, wasn't going to put any limitations on him, but it seemed like a perfect time for Ryan Yarbrough to piggyback. It was his spot, or his theoretical spot in the rotation was up anyways. But Kershaw went 5. The biggest thing besides him looking good and pitching well was that he threw 3 changeups, but they weren't just normal changeups. They were changeups that we've never seen him throw before. And definitely a changeup that Elias Diaz had never seen him throw before, based on the reaction that he gave Kershaw when he threw it. And it was a split changeup. He got threw it 3 times and all 3 strikes. One of them was a looking strikeout. We don't know. I haven't seen anything him talking after the game about it, but a different element for sure that he added to the repertoire for at least for now.
Yeah, so he threw 4 of them.
4.
Statcast only has him with 3, but the ball he gave up the home run on was another splitter, and Statcast has that as a slider actually, which is kind of interesting. I'm trying to look at the spin rates. Oh, that's weird. They also have one slider with a spin rate of only 1382. So that's it looks like Statcast may have had an issue or two with this new pitch. It was interesting for sure. And we know Kershaw has long dreamed about having a changeup. I always think back during the pandemic when they did those, the Zoom calls that fans could hop on and stuff, and seeing Kershaw there, and he's holding the baseball in his hand in a changeup grip. And it's like, it's such a pitcher thing. Every pitcher who doesn't have a changeup is always trying to develop a changeup. And that's been Kershaw his whole career, especially since his fastball velocity started dropping. He's been wanting to add that 4th pitch. And this splitter looked pretty good. It's not amazing or anything, but having that 4th pitch, just another thing in his arsenal, obviously is not perfected. And what Kershaw said after the game was, yeah, I threw 4 of them and 3 of them were pretty good. And, the other one got hit over the wall, and, that's to be expected. It's not going to I guess maybe it's not to be expected for Kershaw because he developed a slider and it just immediately became the best pitch in baseball. So, but things happen, and I think it's maybe the closest that we've come so far. He's played with a changeup over the years, but never this particular. He's always gone with just a traditional circle change kind of changeup. And this one seems like he seemed more comfortable throwing it because so much of it is very, very similar to just throwing a fastball. It's just that your fingers are different, but the arm motion and everything. Whereas a circle change, your arm motion, you're actually trying to pronate a little bit more and get a little bit of that side spin on it. And it's not so much with the splitter. And he's not splitting his fingers super far. You could see it it was pronounced enough that in live view on the TV, I could see it. Like I could see his arm coming up, and I knew he was throwing a splitter on the one that he gave up the home run on. So here comes another splitter, and then he hung it. But it's not, some people with their splitters, they tuck the ball so deep in their fingers, and it doesn't look like it's that pronounced. But definitely, if he's comfortable throwing it in a game already, it seems like it's something he's probably going to continue to play with, and he did get decent results with it. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where he just holds it for the right moment, tease it out there. I wonder if it's brought on at all by the fact. I don't think shoulder correlation and throwing more changeups. I don't know if there's anything there where he would want to throw less sliders or curveballs and maybe try to mix this in. I think it's just a matter of he probably had time. His arm wasn't hurting. He's been throwing this whole time, so maybe he's just been messing with it. Felt comfortable enough with it to try it out. You would think against the Rockies at home at Dodger Stadium would be a good time to try this out. And for the most part, it was. Obviously, the Dodgers are used to scoring a little bit more runs against Rockies sometimes. But either way, everything else looked good. Velocity was there for what Kershaw is at this point. He touched 92 a couple of times, sat high 91, 92. The slider, he didn't have like a crazy amount of swings and misses, but he did have 5 strikeouts in 5 innings. That was good enough. He only 4 swings and misses, but he got some looking ones. So yeah, I mean, Dave Roberts talked about before the game. They asked him how do you find the balance between knowing you need Kershaw, but also knowing you need him in October as well. And at least for the Dodgers now, they're at a point where they're not comfortable, but more comfortable than they were before in terms of in the division. They got a 6-game lead. A 6-game lead can vanish pretty quickly, but also it's strong enough hold that you can be cautious. Kershaw did only go 5 innings. He did throw 60 some pitches. He probably could have gone more if they needed him, if this was a September start and they're fighting for the division or something like that, but they didn't need that right now. He did what they needed. And then Ryan Yarbrough came on the back end. Second time he's come on the back end and done a pretty good job. So seems to be his role at the moment, whether it's going to be with Kershaw for the next couple of times, whether it's going to be with Gonsolin at some point, whether they go a spot start if they ever need a 6-man rotation in the moment. That's kind of what Roberts had said, is he's just going to kind of fill in where they need him.
Sorry. Yeah. And 67 pitches, 5 innings. That's very efficient, 13.4-ish pitches per inning. And, he looked good. It would, for a first start back, I don't know that we could have asked for any more than that, especially with Ryan Yarbrough available to piggyback. It was, it continued the stretch of Dodgers starters being nice to the Dodgers bullpen.
Yeah. And, that helps, especially on nights when the offense is struggling a little bit, or the last 2 nights. So we'll talk about the Dodgers and, the cliche knowing how to win, but why it kind of applies to this team and how it hopefully can apply to this team moving forward. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. If you want the chance to win more money with less picks, head to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. The Sleeper app is good if you believe in yourself and being able to know what guys are going to do. So if you think somebody's going to hit a home run tonight, if you'd like the matchup, if you think somebody's going to get a couple hits tonight, you like the matchup. If you think, a pitcher's going to have a decent amount of strikeouts against a certain team, you like that matchup, you can do all that at the Sleeper app. You can pick up to 8 different players and 8 different total stats. You go over, you go under, stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, more. Get your picks right and you could win big. And remember that the Sleeper app is there for you, and right now they got some dynamic payouts, which is a little bit different. Each player projection has a multiplier attached to it, as opposed to the preset multipliers based on the number of legs in the contest. So with dynamic payouts, that comes, with higher payouts if you do hit on it, because every guy comes with a little bit of a different number in order to boost that up. So go check out the Sleeper app right now, and if you download the Sleeper app and use the promo code Locked On, you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. And if it's not your first listen of the day every day, try to make it so. And if maybe not your first listen, but at least listen, become a part of the everydayers. You don't have to listen every single day, but you got to listen at a pretty good amount, 3 to 4 times a week. We'll still let you in the club if that's what you're going for. As long as you're shooting for 5, sometimes you're always gonna fall a little bit short. And also, if you cannot catch the game on TV or at the game, and you want to listen, the home broadcast is there for you with SiriusXM or the SXM app. All you got to do is search Dodgers and you can listen to the home broadcast for any game. All right, Jeff, before one of the games in Arizona, Dave Roberts, they kind of asked him about, in regards to the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, and how, Dodgers have a little bit more of a veteran team. The Diamondbacks are a little bit of a younger team. They've been scuffling and kind of that dynamic. Dave Roberts, at the end of it, just basically said, he believes this team knows how to win. And it sounds cliche, and you can think of it as, oh well, clearly they don't always do it in the postseason. We haven't seen this specific team, but just in general, if that's what you're thinking when you hear something like that from Dave Roberts. But you look at the last 2 nights, and that's a team that knew how to win. They didn't. It wasn't pretty, but they got the run they needed there late in the game. On Thursday night, they got the big hit that they needed late in the game on Wednesday night. And, this Dodger team, for everything people have thought of and counting them out when they had that rough stretch there earlier in the season, and the deadline was, a little bit of a disappointment, the team keeps chugging along.
Yeah, and it is cliche. And obviously some of it is media spin. But some of it you could see. And a good example of, the Dodgers have scored 4 runs in the last 2 games, and they've won both games. That's impressive. And, that's because the pitching has stepped up, but it's also because they've gotten clutch offensive performances. It was David Peralta on Wednesday night. It was Max Muncy on Thursday night. But Muncy's plate appearance in the 8th inning kind of underscores what Roberts is talking about. I think Muncy has 3 grand slams this year. He has 5 career grand slams. He's a home run hitter, and he came up in a tie game with the bases loaded, and he took a walk. And that's, Max Muncy is good at taking a walk. And, when he came up, I actually predicted it out loud that Muncy was going to walk to take the lead, knowing his opponent, knowing that Bard misses the strike zone a lot, and recognizing that if he could be patient, he probably had a good chance of taking a walk. And knowing that that's what they needed. Obviously a grand slam would have been awesome, but most of the time you don't hit a home run, even when you hit the ball hard. Usually you hit a line drive at the right fielder, or a hard ground ball to second, or whatever it is, but a walk, you always get on base with a walk. And when you're in that kind of situation, obviously, like Freeman taking the walk, I think Freeman really, really wanted to hit. He even uncharacteristically swung at a 3-1 pitch that was out of the zone, because he wanted to get hit, because in that situation, he was second and third, and a walk doesn't help you, doesn't score a run on its own. And so Freddie, he did eventually take his walk, but his goal in that at bat was to get a hit. But Muncy came up saying, if I get on base, we have the lead. And so if he doesn't throw me a strike, I'm not going to do anything other than take my walk. And that's especially for a guy like Muncy, who's been scuffling all year, who's been struggling, who, had already hit a home run earlier in the game. Everything about that plate appearance should have been screaming in Muncy's ear, grand slam, grand slam, grand slam. And instead he just took a walk. And that it's the little things like that. And that's what Max told Kirsten after the game, that, the big plays get a lot of attention, but it's the little plays that win games sometimes. And that was a perfect example. Freddie taking a walk when he didn't get anything to hit. And then Max going up there, not looking for a walk, but perfectly willing to take a walk and refusing to expand the zone. It's a little play. That was the 14th bases loaded walk the Dodgers have had this year, in addition to 11 grand slams. Like that means with bases loaded, pitchers are out of luck when they load the base against the Dodgers, because one way or another, they're going to get runs in.
Yeah, and you look at that inning and whole. I mean, Peralta walks, Mookie singles, Freddie walks, and then Max. They had one hit and they got the run that they needed. The night before too, we passed the baton is one of those where, especially like with Muncy, sometimes we've seen him be not right now, but when he's in certain times, he does look for the walk. He does chase the walk a little bit, but with the guy like Bard, who's had issues with throwing strikes before, he just had issues throwing strikes to Freddie. That is the time to kind of look for that. You look for your pitch that you want, but if you don't get it, you kind of spit on everything else, and you take the walk that you get, and that's what this team does. I mean, the last few nights it's been a different guy. Obviously Freddie and Mookie are the constant. Will Smith is right behind them in the constant. JD, when he's been healthy and going, he was somewhat of a constant, but everything else has just kind of been guys that fill in. Peralta's had a good year overall, but again, he's come through when they need him a couple of times. Hayward has had a decent year overall, and he's come through a couple of times they need him. Miguel Rojas of late has come through when they needed him a couple of times. Other than, even Austin Barnes has come through a couple times in recent memory. One of them, with the bunt that kind of worked out in his favor. But either way, I mean, this team, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, they know how to win. And that means something more than they're doing it when they need it right now. But also, they're putting the ball in play when they need it to. There's been strikeouts, obviously, in key moments, but for the most part that I remember, just, off the top of my head, we don't see as many strikeouts in key moments as maybe we've had in years past. And maybe that's, maybe it's going to be a difference in October where the Dodgers are putting the ball in play a little bit more often.
Yeah. I actually just pulled up the numbers with bases loaded this year for the Dodgers before this game on Thursday. This is not updated with that game yet, but they had 148 plate appearances with bases loaded this year, and have driven in 128 runs in those plate appearances with 11 homers, 7 doubles, and 19 singles, plus the 13 walks, now 14, and 15 sacrifice flies. Like, they are getting the run in one way or another, so often. It's a 316 batting average, 358 on base percentage, 658 slugging percentage for a 1016 OPS, which is 64% better than league average in bases loaded situations. Like, it's and they've had so many opportunities with bases loaded because they're so good at getting on base. This team, even though it's funny that we're talking in a game that they won 2-1 and they've scored 4 runs in the last 2 games about how good this offense is, but even these 2 games shows how good the offense is. If you give these guys enough opportunities to score runs, they're going to do it.
Yeah, and you piggyback that with the pitching that's been solid lately, or for the most part, and it helps out that Kershaw and Yarbrough were able to take most of the innings. Gratterall comes in the 9th, shuts it down, and you get a 2-1 win. Could it have been better against the Rockies and Ty Block? Probably, but for some reason, he's at their number at Dodger Stadium for whatever reason it is. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers won 5 in a row. They're creeping up on the Braves a little bit. So that number 1 seed is not completely out of the realm. So it's been obviously fun to watch, and then they got 3 more with the Rockies that hopefully they can break out a little bit more offensively and see what we can do. But if we're gonna go with the pitching, which is what we're gonna talk about next, the rotation. Kershaw's back. What does the rotation look like rest of the season? What are we hoping for looking into October? That's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Remember, SiriusXM or the XSM app, all you got to do is search Dodgers, and you can listen to the home broadcast for any Dodger game if you're not able to watch, you're not in attendance. You can also find us on there if you search Locked On Dodgers, which is also how you can find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to listen every day. Become a part of the Everydayers. All right, Jeff. It looked like you had one more point real quick before we get into the rotation. I don't know if it was still relevant now. Right there at the end.
No.
All right, cool. So, like I mentioned, Kershaw's back. Before the game, Dave Roberts, talked a little bit more about Buehler. They asked how Buehler and Treinen were feeling. He said he's hoping the old adage of no news is good news, which means he hadn't heard from them yet. But then he went kind of more into Walker Buehler and what it would take for him to legitimately be considered for October. And he said it would be built up to at least, 4 innings, 60 pitches type of deal, through rehab assignments and hopefully, on the mound for the Dodgers at some point before the end of the season. So knowing that Kershaw is back, knowing that, Lance Lynn has looked good the first couple of times through, knowing that, you have Yarbrough for potential, piggyback or a couple innings if you need him, knowing that Julio's had a couple 2 to 3, 3 almost quality starts in a row. The rotation's starting to round into form, but there's still a lot of time for it to continue to round into form or to, kind of become a mess again. Who knows? But it looks like we're finally getting to see what it could look like come October.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like come October because you've got the playoff schedule, the postseason schedule came out over the weekend or earlier this week. And the division series, the NLDS, which will likely be the Dodgers' first postseason series, assuming the Dodgers win the NL West, chances are they will have a better record than whoever wins the NL Central. And so the Dodgers will be either the 1 or 2 seed, meaning they won't play in the wild card series. Last year, that was maybe a detriment to them. This year, I think it'll be an advantage because they will be, in the thick of it. They'll probably be needing that rest. And then the division series, there is a day off between games 1 and 2, which there isn't usually. Usually you only get days off for travel. And so it goes game 1, day off, game 2, day off, game 3, game 4, day off, game 5, which means game 1 is on October 7th, I think, and game 2 is on the 12th, or game 4, is on the 12th, meaning that there's 4 days in between, which means the Dodgers only need 3 starters for that series. And that really does open up their options. When we talk about, obviously Kershaw, assuming Kershaw's healthy, he's going to be in the postseason rotation. And then Bobby Miller seems likely, especially after, how he's pitched. He pitched so well on Wednesday night, showed a lot of guts getting out of that 5th inning jam with 2nd and 3rd, nobody out, getting a couple key strikeouts. Miller seems to be rounding into form. And then there's so many options for the 3rd and 4th starters. And if you only need 3, that makes it even more, like whether it's Gonsolin or Lance Lynn or Ryan Yarbrough or, any of the rookies, Emmett Sheehan or whoever. And who am I forgetting? Julio. Remember Julio? If Julio figures things out, he's a no-brainer if he's pitching the way he did the last 2 seasons. He's a no-brainer for that spot. And if they really only need 3 starters, and you still get to have 13 pitchers on your roster, that means you can have a full bullpen, plus you can have multiple starters in the bullpen to act as piggybackers, whoever they are. It really seems like this NLDS is going to be set up for, and obviously whoever they play against has the same schedule, and they'll also only need 3 starters. And so depending on who the team is, that could be, we remember in 2019, the Nationals beat the Dodgers, and the starting rotation is the only thing the Nationals had going for them. And so, a lot of it would depend on who the opponent is, but with the Dodgers pitching issues and depth and everything, it seems like a huge advantage for the Dodgers the way that this is going to play out.
Yeah. And we'll, see everything kind of play out here the last couple months. you would imagine right now it's Kershaw, Julio for sure. That number 3 spot is a TBD at the moment. I would imagine Miller and Lynn will kind of battle it out for that. It also kind of would depend, if let's just say Lynn continues to pitch well the rest of the way, I'd imagine they'd give him that game 3, even just for the sake of, giving Bobby Miller extra rest if they don't need him that first round. But unless, Miller pitches into the 7th inning more often these next couple, months, then, he could pitch his way into it. It's one of those where you can kind of see a playoff rotation that is formidable, where you maybe couldn't have seen that before. And, this is going off of Kershaw's first start back and the fact that and the hope that he stays healthy. This is the fact that, Julio's had 3 good starts in a row, that he can continue that Lance Lynn, whatever the Dodgers are doing with him, that continues, Bobby Miller, that continues. And the other part for me, at least, is it's looking like we're not going to see Tony Gonsolin start a game in October, which I'm perfectly fine with at this point.
Yeah, the way Gonsolin's pitching right now, and like you said, a lot of things can change in the next 8 weeks or so before the playoffs start. I even love the idea of having those built-in piggybacks available, and going with contrasting styles, having Julio and Miller do a piggyback one way or the other. So you're going with a lefty who doesn't throw as hard again, and then a righty throws 100, and having Ryan Yarbrough and Walker Buehler, or maybe do Buehler with Julio just for pitch counts or whatever. But pairing those hard throwing righties with the softer throwing lefties one way or another, so many options. And for all the pitching problems the Dodgers have had this year, it seems like there's a decent chance that they could have a decent postseason rotation.
Yeah, and I think this year, like just with the fact of what you just mentioned, this year is going to be kind of similar to 2020 in the sense of it's going to be more of a pitching staff rather than a starting rotation and a bullpen. Like, I don't think we'll see Julio in the same role he had 2020, but we could see Bobby Miller in that type of role, maybe.
Or Walker Buehler.
Yeah, or Walker Buehler. Like it's going to be an overall pitching staff. And, it obviously everyone's going to feel different about what Dave Roberts has, but when he's had a staff as a whole where he doesn't have to overly rely on somebody specific and he's not trying to chase a narrative, I think you can trust him a little bit more in that realm than, because he's been doing it recently. Like he's been, a lot of people have actually, I've seen a little bit more praise of him recently than I thought we would have, because he has been managing a little bit differently and he has been able to, piece together this pitching staff at the moment, and it's starting to work out.
But as always, how smart Dave Roberts is will come down to how well the pitchers pitch.
Yeah.
If the guys he puts in, if the guys he puts in pitch well, then he's smart. And if the offense scores runs, they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, like I mentioned, 3 more with the Rockies. It'll be a Fernando-filled weekend. He gets his number officially retired on Friday. They got a couple giveaways the rest of the weekend, so that'll be fun. But you got anything else before we head out for the week?
Nope, that's it. It's been a good week for the Dodgers, good week for us, and looking forward to hopefully finish off a sweep of the Rockies and just kind of put the dagger in this National League West race.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. And then they'll have the day off on Monday, and then 2 more series at home. So a lot coming up at Dodger Stadium here over the next week or so. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to become an everydayer. The easiest way to become an everydayer is to listen every day. And the easiest way to help yourself do that is by subscribing wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Remember, SiriusXM or the SXM app, search Dodgers. You can listen to the home broadcast for any game. If you want to find us, I know there's people have been having issues recently with Twitter or some people might call it something else. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. It might be easier just to individually message one of us, and then we'll obviously me and Jeff talk. So we'll figure out whatever the question, comment, or concern is. But we also can be found on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. And you can get a hold of us via email if that's easier for you, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can always send us a text or leave us a voicemail at 323-863-LOCK. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, text my advice play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you on Monday.